Wait, what's happening? I go shopping for blue food coloring and I come back to this? Since when was this a thing? Congrats, co-authors, you really caught us all by surprise. The back of my mind is fully convinced that this is a prank, and no amount of willpower will change that. The Sun and the Star is getting a sequel? If you didn't hear the news yet, yes, The Sun and the Star is officially getting a sequel book, and Oshiro is really having fun interacting with / torturing our fandom about it. So, yay? Mission complete. You officially broke me. I am now a lifeless husk. Okay, let's get into the meat of it. The Sun and the Star is getting a sequel, it is confirmed, and it is a real thing. Mark Oshiro has multiple tweets confirming it, and as far as I can tell, Rick Riordan confirmed it during his virtual book tour for Wrath of the Triple Goddess, which I did not see live and could not find footage of, but regardless, anyone can see Oshiro's tweets with their own eyes and know for sure that this is happening. Oshiro has also mentioned on Twitter, and yes, I will continue to deadening the social media platform, that the book has already been written and is currently in the editing process. When asked if it would come out next year, they responded with a series of emojis that had their mouths zipped shut. They also made a post on Instagram expressing their elation with the new book and adding that according to the Trollmaster himself, aka Rick Riordan, it is the most bonkers book in the Percy Jackson universe. Thus far, there appears to be no known information on the title, plot, summary, characters, or anything else. What do you mean you're not gonna tell us what it's about? You finished writing the whole damn book, and you're not even gonna give us the slightest inkling? They probably will in the future, but still! Okay, if you just wanted confirmation that this sequel is a real thing, you've got it, and you're free to click away now as I spend the rest of the video discussing potential pros, cons, and predictions for Solangelo 2, which is what I'm going to call it until we have an official title. One possible good sign is that Solangelo 2 was not announced until it was actually written, potentially indicating that the co-authors held off on telling the public until they were sure they could write a book that was worthy of being released. In other words, instead of revealing the creation of this book when they agreed to write it, they might have intentionally chosen not to get fans' hopes up until the book was actually written. While the final version isn't done, they might finally be far enough into the process to definitively say that it measures up to the standards of the original and deserves to be released. One concern of mine and of others is that the original book was intended as a standalone, so does it need a sequel, or is it just getting one because the original was popular? And tangentially on that note, is The Sun and the Star going to turn into a trilogy? I only ask because prior to this book's release, all of the major Percy-verse books were parts of either trilogies or pentalogies. Then we got The Sun and the Star. Now we're getting its sequel. Where is this going? We're in uncharted territory, and that could be good or bad. Another potential con, with emphasis on potential, is how quickly the book is being released. Here's what I mean. The Sun and the Star was announced in October 2021 and came out in May 2023. Its sequel presumably started to be written shortly after this, like maybe in July or August 2023. And if Oshiro's emojis are anything to go off of, it will come out in 2025, I think. Now that seems like about the same amount of time to write each book. Why is it a problem? Because one of the most common criticisms of The Sun and the Star was the lack of consistency between the two writing styles, and even between this and the rest of the books. While some of that criticism just boils down to characters changing and developing over time, it's true that the co-authorship led to some inconsistency. It's obviously significant for a queer author to be involved in telling this story, but going forward, it's going to be really important to take the adequate time to ensure that the writing feels both consistent and like an authentic Percy Jackson book. Now, admittedly, I didn't mind Oshiro's writing style as much as some people did, and co-authorship is always going to lead to some inconsistency, but Solangelo 2 is part of the Camp Half-Blood universe, and it should feel that way. Now granted, we don't know when in 2025 the sequel is coming out, so it's possible that they are taking more time to ensure consistency, but we'll have to see. And if the authors are watching this, please take the time to ensure that the story feels consistent, even if you have to push the release date back 6 months or however long it takes. One last thing working against this book. How do you top Tartarus? Riordan apparently stated that Solangelo 2 is the most bonkers book in the Camp Half-Blood world. The most bonkers book? Really, Rick? More bonkers than that time a bunch of kids sought advice from a pink poodle? More bonkers than a kid pretending to be a lady cyclops and using first grade math to avoid marrying a guy with demon sheep? More bonkers than that time an anthropomorphic frog taught a bunch of underworld cows marching band tricks? More bonkers than Apollo existing? I'm concerned. Are you just saying this for dramatic effect? Because if you were, it would actually make me feel better. Or, no, worse. See what I mean? Okay, I kid. The bonkers thing doesn't bother me, but the idea of trying to create a sequel to a Tartarus story does. I think we can all agree that we don't want Nico and Will to go to Tartarus again, both because it would be repetitive and because it would downplay the intensity of Tartarus. So hopefully this isn't a book about a third journey there to save Jameson. But then, what is it about? A sequel is supposed to go beyond the original. How then do you top the original when its premise was literally a voyage into the fiery pits of hell? It's possible that they'll try to play the angle of,
oh, it's not more physically dangerous, but the emotional stakes for the characters are higher in this next book.
and that would not work. The whole point of the fantasy story genre is to use magical things as representations of the hero's real-life struggles, i.e. the Cocoa Puffs. Second of all, that's the same trap Blood of Olympus fell into. I could make a whole video on why Blood of Olympus failed, and maybe I will someday, but its biggest problem, in my opinion, was this. Instead of trying to stop Gaia, the Seven spent most of the book trying to make sure none of them died in the process, via the physician's cure. So it became a foregone conclusion that they were all gonna make it out alive. You know they're not gonna go through all this work getting the cure for nothing. And knowing that you're not gonna lose any of the main characters significantly lowers the stakes. In the same way, if the main goal of Solangelo 2 is the characters are going to have to overcome this emotional struggle, it spoils the story before it even finishes and significantly lowers the stakes. All that to say, I don't know how you sequel The Sun and the Star. However, despite all of this, Solangelo 2 has a secret weapon. Strength, indifference. And I'm not just saying that to be poetic. The Sun and the Star, despite having its differences from all other Percy-verse books, was still generally considered a success and is well liked in the fandom. It's the first book where the goal isn't to save the world, it's to save one specific person. And the consequences of the character's actions don't affect innocent, oblivious mortals. I know the newest Percy Jackson books are also not about saving the world, and I haven't read them yet, so no spoilers please.
I have a time management problem, okay?
But based on the summary of Wrath of the Triple Goddess, I'm going to assume that whatever happens in that book at least affects the population of New York. The Sun and the Star is also the first standalone book and dealt with queer topics in a way that no prior book had. And guess what? None of those things are part of the popular criticism against it, unless you count the views of homophobes and transphobes, which I don't. The Sun and the Star took a lot of gambits, and plenty of them paid off. Maybe the same will be true of Solangelo too. Alright, now let's move on to my predictions. If we're looking at themes and messages, what would be a good follow-up to Sun and the Star? Maybe now that Nico has said a final goodbye to his birth family, who were pretty important to that story, he can spend Solangelo 2 focusing on the chosen family he's found with Will, Reyna, and the Seven. I'm not so sure how the other messages of TSATS? TSATS? ZATS? Like accepting trauma and working at your relationships would lend themselves to a sequel or follow-up message, but we're gonna have to see. All we know for sure is we have some interesting things awaiting us in 2025. Speaking of Reyna, anyone who saw my Sun and the Star review will be unsurprised to learn that I'm really rooting for her to play an important role in this book, and my OG fans will know that I've been playing the long game with this one. I've been more confident about it than I am now, but one must not lose hope. I've long been of the opinion that ever since Reyna joined the Hunters, there were some issues in her relationship with Nico that needs to be explored. But is it even an opinion? Blood of Olympus confirms that Nico still resents and blames the Hunters even years later, and when they kidnapped Reyna, he kinda lost it because he didn't want to lose another important person to them. Blood of Olympus also straight up says that Nico and Reyna have a sibling-like dynamic, and both the Titan's Curse and Battle of the Labyrinth spell out very plainly that Nico has abandonment issues because of what happened with Bianca. So I feel like this is all just canon. There's nothing to debate. Nico is obviously going to have a problem with Reyna's choice. And I really want to see their friendship take a spotlight again. It feels like after Blood of Olympus, their friendship was thrown under a rug. These two are like telepathically connected and we're just not supposed to think about it. Reyna hasn't brought up Nico at all since then, and Nico has brought up Reyna like twice, but not in the context of their friendship. There's even a moment in Sun and the Star when he downplays their friendship. When Nico and Will are discussing Amphithemis, which I think that's how his name is pronounced, Nico references how Reyna's dad was also a mania and she had to kill him because of that, despite the fact that when Reyna revealed this to Nico, it was an incredibly difficult and vulnerable moment and she straight up told him that she would be executed if word got out. I don't care how much you trust your boyfriend, that's still a violation of her trust. Okay, I'm not mad, this was probably an overlooked detail, but put Reyna in this book. Please. Okay, I don't want it to seem like I'm just hating on Sun and the Star because I did like it, but I have one more issue with it to point out. If you do not give William Andrew Solace a backstory in Solangelo 2, I'm gonna lose my shit. He needs a more detailed backstory, one that isn't just his first monster attack, one that isn't all about Nico, one that significantly affects his character development throughout the course of the book. See Heroes of Olympus for examples. He needs to transcend the Nico's boyfriend status. Okay, I've said my piece. Moving on. I do wonder if Piper's gonna be in this book, considering her appearance at the end of Sun and the Star. I wouldn't mind too much one way or the other, but it's an interesting thought. Also, if Reina's in this book, that likely means that Thalia will be too. That could lead to an interesting potential parallel between Thalia and the Hunters coming to Jason's rescue in The Lost Hero, and Reina and the Hunters potentially coming to Nico's rescue at some point in Solangelo 2. Maybe we'll even see Thalia, Reina, and Nico shed some mutual tears over Jason. Hazel's badassery and cinnamon rollishness are always welcome as a positive addition to any story, and I wonder if Meg's gonna make an appearance just because she's fun. Possibly even an Apollo cameo? I think that would be cool, but I'm just throwing things out there at this point. Anyways, demigods, mortals, and monsters, I think that wraps up just about everything I've got for the day. Feel free to comment your opinions, predictions, and or fangirling screams down below. I can't wait to read what you all have to say, and I'll see you in a week. Bye for now. Okay, just so you all know, I can't see shit right now. Light is reflecting off my glasses and I cannot see anything, so I'm gonna have fun reading my script today. Also, I have a sore throat and a burnt tongue because I had hot chocolate last night trying to soothe my sore throat so I'd be ready to film a video today, and it did not work, but I'm still here. So, apologies for my fluctuant voice, and I hope you appreciate everything I do for you. More bonkers than that time an anthropomorphic cow taught a bunch of... Okay.